Tiffany Turned On. I'm your host, Tiffany Anton. I'm a psychotherapist specializing in sex and relationships. I hope to help you get turned on in life as well as inside of your bedroom. Hello! This has been a hell of a hiatus, about 5.5 years, and I'm only back due to popular demand, meaning requests from friends, colleagues, and clients of mine that actually listened and wanted to come in for therapy. Came back, and I'm here again with one of my favorite guests, Rain, and I was exploring what should we talk about. You know, I talk about things all the time, but what do people maybe want to hear? And I realized myths and the power of myths within relationships. So, of course, I researched what were different articles out there, and I think about 16 different myths came up. So I'm wondering, before I even start, what's one of the first myths that you think of? Or one that you wanted to be true, or one that you're glad isn't true. So on Forbes magazine, I checked out this article that says a psychologist suggests unlearning these 3 myths about love. And let's see, here's some quotes. I always wanted the fairy tale, but the dating scene is the exact opposite. How come no one prepared me for this? Well, right now, I am in the dating scene and nobody prepared me for this. Pictures with really bad teeth, because teeth are important to me. Okay. So evidently I lived in a fairy tale where most of us had straight teeth versus the stereotype of the UK, right? Have you heard that people's teeth in England are bad?
Oh my goodness.
Or maybe it's just our American view of beauty being linked with straight teeth. I mean, I had to have braces growing up. I had to have them twice. All right, so I got off track here a little bit because I was thinking about the fairy tale related to the dating scene. And my judgment is much less on other extra appearances, except for teeth. What is the scoop with the dating scene in the U.S. right now? According to a Singles in America survey by the Harris Poll Thought Leadership Practice, found that 1/4 of Americans said they weren't even looking for a relationship, and 8 in 10 Americans felt that you don't need to be married to be happy. Of those singles, 32% are men and 28% are women. We know that online dating is really popular, with nearly 3 in the 10 adults saying they have used the dating site or app, and more than 40% saying that online dating has made dating easier for them. But when asked how they currently feel about dating, only 36 of the respondents somewhat positive, and 24% said very positive, while 23 felt indifferent to dating, and 4% felt very negatively. The top place to find dates, according to 45% of respondents, was online dating apps, followed by 33% being connected by a friend, and 32% from concerts or festivals. Data from Pew Research Center has found that 47% of Americans say dating is harder now than it was 10 years ago. A dating survey from the Survey Center on American Life found that women are more likely than men to be unable to find someone who meets their dating expectations. And college-educated women, in particular, have more specific expectations and are concerned about dating someone who has differing views on abortion, who smokes, who is unemployed, or more. Here's another quote. Love has always been this pure and ecstatic thing for me, but lately it's been getting more and more messy. Was I wrong this whole time? Yes. Just like sex, love is messy. Sex is messy too. And if we try to make it all pristine and not making any of the wrong noises or not getting like sloppy, you're going to be disappointed. Awkward, you're going to fall over. And that's kind of parallels how it is in the dating scene.
Agreed.
It's going to be messy. You're going to be awkward. You're going to not want to make certain sounds.
The sounds is always an issue.
Another one, what if I never find my soulmate? I don't ever want to settle for anyone but my twin flame. Did you watch that documentary on twin flames?
No, I didn't know there was one.
You didn't?
No, I need to watch this.
You totally need to watch it.
Yes.
And the guy is linked up in Michigan as well. It's called something Twin Flames on there. I was, I'm interested in theory, right? That woo-woo spiritual view of it. And this couple got together and they created, in essence, kind of a twin flame cult. And they would tell people who to get together with and everything. Yeah.
Like a matchmaker twin flame thing?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, total matchmaker. And he was bizarre and he was cussing and just rude. And I was thinking, why would anyone follow him? But once you've drank the Kool-Aid, you ignore those things. Same thing in relationships. Once we drink the Kool-Aid, then we ignore some of those red flags. And this dude was full of red flags. So if you're looking for your twin flame, I'm going to say to you, good luck. I thought that I found one, but ended up, that fire went out. It really went out. It wasn't just pouring water over it. It was like a...
But it burned hot when you had it.
It burned hot.
It burned hot and fast.
Yes. So this lady right here that wants to find her soulmate or twin flame, I'm going to tell you, good luck. And then I will also say there is a good human out there for you.
Yes, absolutely.
So now we'll get to the list. And his first one is of the author Mark Travers. Opposite poles attract. What do you think of that, Rain?
I think opposites definitely do attract. And I think a lot of that can go back to attachment styles. And I know I have a way of attracting avoidant partners. And I guess that puts me more of an anxious attachment. Yes, opposites do attract.
I think we could do a couple podcasts just about this attachment shit.
Yes.
Because it's relevant.
Most people don't understand it.
Well, without going too much of a tangent, even though I'm the queen of tangents, what we have learned in the insecure attachment styles is the anxious one and the avoidant one, they really like each other, and the anxious one wants to pull the avoidant one in and provide all kinds of love, and then the avoidant one tends to be, that's great, and goodbye.
Or step back.
Step back.
And it becomes a dance.
It does, because the dance of closeness and distance and closeness and distance. And the anxious one is known for researching things, wanting more therapy, how do we heal it,
wanting to understand their partner more.
I recommend you check out theattachmentproject.com to learn more about attachment styles. In a quote on their website, it says, attachment styles and types develop early in life and often remain stable over time. However, this does not mean they cannot be changed into more secure forms of attachment. It just means that you may need to develop self-awareness through understanding and resolving those attachment issues. The first step of this process is to learn how insecure attachment develops and influences thoughts and actions within the important relationships in our lives. During childhood, it has an overarching influence on our future social and intimate relationships, and even their relationships at work. In other words, this early bond creates a template or rules for how you build and interpret relationships as adults. So in graduate school, they would talk about the importance of childhood development. Sure, it's important. But I didn't get our need to deal with childhood shit because we're adults. And, we already did that. That's the same.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've been there, done that. But then what I realized is it actually formed my brain. So neurons that fire together wire together. My amygdala knew how to respond in the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I created a sense of homeostasis of what was normative. And then what we do is even if the person is the opposite, they're going to have the themes that arise from our childhood experiences. So many of us, even those of us with good parents, have to retrain, rewire our brain in order for us to be effective life partners. So when opposite poles attract, you can think about Democrats and Republicans, atheists and Catholics, thrifty with finances and an easy spender. What are some other opposite attracts come to your mind? What about someone who's a health nut and another person who enjoys gluttony?
Someone who enjoys sex and someone who doesn't enjoy sex.
Okay, those people are coming into my session.
A clean freak.
Oh, yes, good one.
And someone who is a clutterbug. Someone who...
You're so nice, clutterbug.
Those that are control freaks. and those that are more loosey-goosey and hippy-dippy and just want to flow with things.
Well, that reminds me of time management. People who really want to make firm plans and other people that just fly by the seat of their pants.
Yes.
Is that the saying?
Yep.
So, listeners, you need to think about what are some of those opposites and what might you be attracted to. I have learned in situations of my life that I am no longer interested in an opposite nor a clone.
Oh, no, definitely not a clone, because that person's not going to challenge.
Well, that person also is going to suck at math. But I'm talking about the big opposites that we were just labeling. Yeah, I want someone who's going to challenge me in growth, so psychological growth, emotional growth, in exploration, and that would be in all kinds of environments of exploration. And of course, since it's this podcast, I'm going to say sex. I want to find a partner that aligns with my worldview. And there are many people out there with very differing worldviews. And I want someone that aligns that with me. I want someone that has a spunk versus being with someone that's kind of
passive.
I mean, we can have passive parts of us, but when it's their overt personality, that wouldn't be a good fit for me. What would be opposites that you would be interested in? So I'm listing the ones that I want to align with me. What opposites would you say yes to? You know, you can't see her here, but she's got some big eyes and is quiet, even though she positively stated, yes, opposites can attract.
Golly, I was not prepared for that question.
Well, the author here says, the simple, boring truth is that similarity and compatibility in values and priorities is what ensures a long and satisfying relationship. So why do we choose people different from us?
Why do we choose people that are different than us?
Yeah, I think
maybe we're looking for things that we don't have, characteristics that we don't possess, and we find attractive
because we want
to be more like that person in those ways.
Okay, so they have admirable traits.
Admirable traits that we don't possess, so they could be complementary to what we bring to the table.
Okay, but again, the word's complementary, so I was mentioning that before. It's not black and white, it's saying if you're on the black end of the spectrum or the white end of the spectrum, where you would go is the gray zone. Okay, this author says, yin and yang thinking. This is a thought process that mistakes the volatility of an opposite relationship for love. While the difference could add the drama and spice in your relationship, they might never give you the peace, comfort, or security that love should ensure.
Definitely makes you think.
Okay, next one, childhood experiences. You know, I brought up the bullshit that we actually have to deal with our childhood. People who are attracted to the opposites attract school might be emulating relationships they saw when growing up, such as having extremely dissimilar parents. Well, I had very dissimilar parents, not in regards of how they look, because they were both redheads. That's kind of rare to have two redheads together. So I definitely got stuck in the redheaded beauty trap. But my mother was very much an introvert, and my father was an extrovert. What about your parents? So that was one of there's lots and lots of differences, but this is the one that I can actually record myself saying. So introverted, extroverted is one of my...
Both my parents were more extroverted, but there was a big age difference. There's 9 years between the two of them, which definitely created some interesting dynamics.
Yeah, the 9 years?
Yeah, a big difference.
How else did you see that your parents were maybe opposite? Like, we listed a handful of things. We talked about cleanliness and money and religion and exploration.
I mean, religion, absolutely.
They were the same or opposite?
They were both Christian, but one was Catholic and one was Baptist.
Oh, that's pretty different.
That was a big difference between the two of them, and that made things interesting at times. My dad loved being outside and being busy and never wanted to stop. And my mother was not so go-y.
Okay, was she a bit of a hermit?
No. And they didn't want to spend time together.
Oh!
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a way of avoiding each other, I guess is a good way to say it.
Great. So you actually might subconsciously choose someone who is more avoidant than you because it repeats that pattern.
Correct.
We do all kinds of things to unintentionally screw ourselves.
Yes, that's what I have realized at my ripe old age of 50.
Oh, you're going to be 51 in just a handful of days.
Yes,
and then we'll celebrate that. Again, the first one of the myths was opposite attracts. And the second one, the teen fantasy. So the teen fantasy is the second one listed by this author. It says you might cringe at the popular teenage media like Twilight and Wattpad fan fiction. What's Wattpad?
You've never heard of Wattpad?
No.
It's basically a place where teens and young adults can go and write stories, poetry, etc. for other people to read on the web. It's pretty interesting. You can find some really raunchy stuff there.
From teens?
Oh, come on. Yes, from teens. But it's not like full-on porn stuff. It's more from a view of a teenager.
You know, I can't stand rom-coms and I can't stand coming-of-age movies.
Oh, no. It's a little bit more gritty than that.
Okay, well, I might have to check it out. So it says here the teen media like Twilight, and you know, I got totally sucked into the Twilight series, and that was not my Edward, who they chose with the Robert Pattinson. But what if these obsolete fantasies were still insidiously influencing our adult relationships? Evidently, there was article published or study published in the Journal of Couple and Relationship Therapy that examined teenagers' relationship cognitions, explain that adolescents, mostly boys, can sometimes have highly risky ways of viewing and thinking about relationships. These include believing in blind love, thinking that feelings of love alone are enough to sustain a relationship, sliding in relationships instead of pacing themselves, and being tolerant towards sliding relationships. Tolerant relationships instead of pacing themselves, and even being tolerant towards controlling behaviors like manipulation and abuse. That really surprises me. It just said most boys. When you think that as girls in regards to the gender difference,
Yes.
love is blind. Feelings of love alone are enough. I'm going to say, let's just put the gender aside, and let's just say teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to lean toward the typical female fantasy that we see.
Yeah, but you know, having a teenage daughter, even talking to her about the guys that she speaks to, they seem to also have this very fairy tale-ish idea of what a relationship is, which is totally just not accurate.
It's kind of like porn. Totally not just act. Now,
Yeah.
at times we can have some little pinch of porn sex
Yeah.
on a rare occasion. But this is the fallacies that we have. You know, it's when I read that, I think of, you know, the princess and the prince. Well, at first, of course, the prince has to save the princess because for some reason she has to be in distress and need a man or need a partner to survive.
To make him feel important and strong, like he can do something. It's important for his ego.
And then if they give us a lot of attention, then it fills our ego. And we
Yes.
feel that we're important enough to be rescued.
Yes.
Look at how much he loves me. He's gone to all of these challenges just to bring me to his side.
So ridiculous. I'm sorry.
My mama used to say that she did have the hope and belief that she would be treated like a princess.
Really?
She did.
Wow.
She really got hit with the reality of that one. That wasn't even a SWAT. She got a cannonball. She was not going to be the princess or treated like the princess.
I never had that.
I never had it either.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least we didn't get that fairy tale imprinted on us from our parents.
I think at a younger age I was watching soap operas.
But who wasn't?
So we could talk a lot about the whole fantasy of what we expect our relationships to be. And that is wrapped up in these myth discussions. So you'll hear us talk more about that. And the third one from this author is what we say in traditional Christian ceremonies, which is till death do us part.
Lots of discussion about this earlier, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Till death do us part. It's only till death do you part if both partners are committed to growing with each other and respecting each other's growth, and they want to stay growing at the same pace.
You got it.
And if they don't, one person has to make the choice of continuing to grow and moving forward, and they leave the other person in the dust. It's sad. But
well, we tend to have societal success when we see people and they have like their 50th year anniversary. And we say, how did you make that work? But we look at it as success, like you made it 50 years. They could have made it 49 miserable years out of the 50, but they have lived together and stayed together, and then they are celebrated in our society. And now let's hope that as they changed and grown and evolved, as we do, that they did so on a similar path that, again, I'm going to use the word complemented each other. People may not want to live together or stay monogamous anymore in their marriages or for long-term relationships. What this author talks about is Taylor Swift, and we all know from her love stories as well as the social media, she's had a slew of potential till death do us part. Now there's current gossip on her with the football player, but we just know that from the past. And relationships, even with the most beautiful and loving ones, may not last forever. We see it over and over. I often look at like the People magazine article that says couples that broke up in 2023. Just to see, who are they? Because I'm nosy and I want to see
who didn't make it. We got to see the train wreck.
This author says is the dynamic of relationships can change drastically. And that's when he says, for instance, people may not want to live together or stay monogamous anymore in their marriage or their long-term relationship. While changes like these might be uncomfortable to make or even consider, they can ultimately feel most liberating and authentic. The urge to open up your relationship to a non-monogamous arrangement does not necessarily signal the end of love. In fact, it can be that both partners love and trust each other enough to experiment with novelty. Love should be what you want it to be. Now, again, we've talked before about non-monogamy. We could have 10 more episodes about non-monogamy. This guy is just saying till death do us part within monogamy doesn't necessarily have to be the end-all be-all model. And you and I were talking about that does not equate relationship success, a sense of fulfillment, individual and coupleship happiness. According to Charish Books, an independent feminist bookstore, they list the most popular books on polyamory and non-monogamy. Their recommendations are The Ethical Slut by Dossie Easton, More Than Two, A Practical Guide to Ethical Polyamory by Frank Rowe, I might be mispronouncing that, Eve Rickert, Janet Hardy, Tatiana Gill, Opening Up, A Guide to Creating and Sustaining Open Relationships by Tristan Taramino, I always recommend her, Building Open Relationships, Your Hands-On Guide to Swinging, Polyamory, and Beyond by Liz Powell, The Jealousy Workbook, Exercises and Insights for Managing Open Relationships by Kathy Labriola. Highly recommend this book. Polyamorous Next Door, Inside Multiple Partner Relationships and Families, again by Elizabeth Sheff. Undoing Monogamy, The Politics of Science and Possibilities of Biology by Angela Wiley. Love's Refraction, Jealousy and Compersion in Queer Women's Polyamorous Relationships by Gillian Derry. I would recommend you research what might be the best fit for you if you are interested in non-monogamy and polyamory. It says, tying yourself down to a one-dimensional image in your head that has no room for you or your partner's desires may burn your relationship out. I used to say, until love ends. And so instead of till death do us part, but until love ends. When I was younger, and I no longer say that because we can continue to love people that are very unhealthy for us.
And love is a choice. At least I feel it is.
It can be a daily choice.
Yes.
Like I'm choosing to love and honor. And I really like the word cherish, even though it's sappy and I don't tend to like sappy language. All right, the perception of love needs to grow and change with you. Getting out of these ideals of being opposite of what a fantasy is. This prince and princess dynamic that continues to be reinforced. Death, ending the marriage, means that it was successful. Did you like some of the myths that we talked about today? If so, stay tuned for part 2 because we're bringing more right for you. The music for Tiffany Turned On is provided by Kumasi Afrobeat. If you're interested in more of their music, you can find them online at kumasiafrobeat.com. KUMASIAFROBEAT.com. They are New Orleans' full Afrobeat band. They play to make you move. If you liked what you heard in today's episode and you want to learn more about me, check out my website at neworleanssextherapy.com. I also have a TED Talk entitled I Love Pleasure from TEDx Vermilion Street.